want to speak, just make sure you got the microphone on, and once you stop speaking, make sure the microphone is off. And if any officers are on Teams, make sure your video and audio is on whilst you are speaking. We now move over to apologies.
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Aslam Khan, Councillor Mahmood Hussain, who's been subbed by Councillor Nasser, Councillor Gillian Fry, who's been subbed by Matt Fry, and Councillor Franks.
Thank you. You have the minutes of 20th of October in front of you. Is everyone happy with the minutes? Okay, thank you. Those are duly approved. How many chairs up to this? Okay. In terms of the chair's update, the reference from the last meeting relating to the waste disposal task and finish group will go to 1st of December executive meeting with the outcome feedback to January meeting of this committee. There will be an item of urgent business to receive in the call-in on executive decision EX 10725, transfer of land at Wandon Park, called in by Councillors Franks and Matt Fry, which we will now take in agenda item 5. Does anyone have any disclosures of interest? No, thank you. We now move over to agenda item 5, which is the call-in of the executive decision EX 10725, transfer of land at Wandon Park. The above call-in was received in accordance with the scrutiny call-in process, and the agreement of the chair is to be taken at the OSB on Mondays on this meeting. The call-in report for this meeting is attached and available on CMIS as well. So Councillor Matt Fry, you called in the decision. So do you want to outline your reasons and present any supporting evidence?
Yes, I called in the meeting, sorry, the decision, basically because of the complications around the Wandon Park sale have questioned the integrity and honesty of the council and brought it into disrepute. Okay. Do you want to sort of expand on any supporting evidence? Or yes. Okay. So on social media, there's been a lot of noise around this. This has started with things such as the council is incompetent. The council are shameful and shameless. The councillors and their lackeys are only in office to serve themselves and friends and families and not the town. These are just some of the comments on social media concerning the actions of the council with regards to the handling of Wandon Park sale. These comments are clearly directed towards us councillors from all parties, questioning our integrity and honesty. They continue raising suspicions of wrongdoing by the council and officers. LBC definitely massively is corrupt, no doubt whatsoever. Like all in power, they make the rules up so that they are going to...
Sorry, Councillor, I'm a bit confused. Are you quoting social media or are these your personal opinions?
This is quotes.
Could you make that clear?
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. Okay.
If something's been brought as reason why, we need specific references to specific posts on social media, not just social media says this, because I think there's quite serious allegations and we need specific bits of evidence brought before us, and not say social media saying this.
Okay, these are all posts that can be found on the Wandon Park, Friends of Wandon Park social media.
Hang on, one second.
They're readily available, they're in the public domain.
Councillor Neef, you will get the chance to ask questions in the next bit.
A point of order, Chair. It's not like but the people who have called the decision in are supposed to explain to us the reason for calling it in. That's the first step. And so far, I've heard no reason at all for calling it in. Hang on, I didn't interrupt
Yep.
you, so don't you interrupt me. I've heard no reason at all for calling it in, apart from what may be on social media. And by the way, I've taken advice. I don't need to declare an interest tonight because it's all about internal council processes. And so far, I've heard absolutely nothing about them. So can we have the first part, right?
Okay.
Explain why it was called in, not what's on social media. And that's how it's supposed to happen.
I apologise. It's my lack of knowledge on this point. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Shaw, that's fine. If you can allow the member to respond, please.
So I'll restart. Shall I with all? Yeah. Okay. But the executive committee has advised that the members of overview has been advised that members of the overview and scrutiny board acknowledge that on the 3rd of December, the decision has already been implemented. We are concerned that criticism of Luton Borough Council on various social media channels has significantly increased in both frequency and the seriousness of the allegations being made, including claims of corruption, brown envelopes, etc., all without any evidence offered. OSB members request that the executive move to help restore the council's reputation for openness and honesty by seeking further report covering the additional valuations received and explaining any reduction in the sale price achieved. Okay.
Okay. The floor is now open to members to ask questions to Councillor Fry. Councillor Shaw, you had your hand up.
Yes, Chair. So the fact that the executive or the officers at council admit a mistake had been made, they report it back to the executive, and the only mistake was made at a meeting was missed when the official land transfer should have took place. And now that has been corrected by the executive. So you pointed out a mistake that that has been already corrected by the executive, but you're still trying to make political capital out of it when they put it right themselves. They've done all we can ask them to do, they have done. So I'm a bit lost whether it's a political game you're playing or you're following the advice of the hang on a minute, Councillor Stevens, I'm perfectly entitled to ask questions. So my question is, are you playing political games or are you satisfied that the executive has corrected the mistake it made?
I'm concerned with the loss of reputation of the council through this matter, the openness of that decision, the lack of clarity, the lack of ability for members to ask questions in the executive. I'm concerned about that openness and the resulting backlash that our residents and the residents of Luton have given on social media. And I'm concerned that both the reputations of this council and the reputations of Luton have been damaged by the lack of clarity from the executive on making their decision and the amount that they came up with for that site, the sale of the site.
You're allowing it again, Chair. Now he's had another bit in there, the value of the land. That is nothing to do with the calling. You've got the paper in front of you. The calling was about the way the decision was made. The value of the land is not mentioned in the calling. So can we stick to the brief what's in standing orders, please, not add extra bits in tonight?
That's fine. If members can just run through the questions, please, and allow Councillor Fry to answer to them. Next is Councillor Hanif.
Yeah, so Councillor Fry, you mentioned openness, but is it or is it not a matter of public record, the decisions made by the executive? And on that basis, the decisions are open, but I'm sorry, it's still not good enough to bring this to this committee, the feelings of social media, because that does not represent how do you say, an honest and a representative voice of the public, because that is open to abuse. How do we know that the residents of Wondon Park Facebook group live in the borough? Do they live in a Luton address? Are they council taxpayers in the borough? How can you say that with 100% certainty that those people in that Facebook group? But secondly, I find it frustrating that you've taken up the time of this committee without bringing anything to back up your claims. We don't see anything. And I think you should take back those comments about the openness of this council, because the executive's decisions are a matter of public record. They're there for everyone to see. Sorry, Councillor, can you not?
Order, Chair. This is not a question. This is a long diagram, long discourse he's actually coming up
Councillor
with.
Stevens, I am asking.
It could be a question.
Okay, can we get order in this house, please? I am the chair. I will stop anyone if I feel that they are commenting for too long. Councillor Hanif, can you wrap up your question, please?
Thank you. Yeah. So my question is, why have you not brought in the evidence to, or the supposed representations of the public that you seem to be mentioning and backing up your claims? And what evidence do you have that the executive has not been open in its decision making, especially the sale of regarding this?
Has the executive given a methodology of how they came up with the sale of the sale process of the Wandon Park? Is that in open and available to the public? In the on this, it's not. In the meeting on November the 3rd, there were no questions allowed. It was passed as a matter of procedure. There wasn't any opportunity to query any of the document that was presented beforehand. The document itself stated that the price of, or the sale value, and apologies, it was in the document, that was adjusted on the advice of the surveyors, the current surveyors. There's no indication of what the original price was, where it's been moved from, but it just went to this magical number of £2 million. The openness isn't in the public domain. Those figures and how they came to those figures aren't in the public domain. So how you can say there's openness and is ridiculous. With regard to the social media, I accept potentially there are people outside of the Wandon Park area or outside Luton on there, but there are a lot of it. I personally know some of the people who have posted, and the quotes that I've got and I came across, and literally, as I said, I did half an hour search, and some of these accusations are pretty disgusting, and they may well be unfounded. But the fact that people are going on social media and or having conversations with us when we're on the doorstep about their concerns about the sale and the procedures of the council, and that it's not, the process isn't in the public domain, how we came up with those figures is why people are getting frustrated and why people are losing faith in this council.
I'm sorry, Councillor, I'm beginning to sound like a broken record. Why have you not brought that with you? You have mentioned accusations on social media, which I find preposterous to bring to a council meeting. Those accusations can be libelous. So why have you not brought the views of the residents that you say that you are representing with this part of, with this urgent business? And I'm sorry, you just got to be, could be, this is quite subjective what you're saying. but why haven't you not brought the evidence with you to show that this is what the public are saying? Because sorry, this committee will not accept that this is social media speaking.
I can appreciate that. Yeah, it's probably my naivety. I haven't got the full evidence. I could put the social media posts up on the screen now if you want me to connect. They're available. They're in the public domain. The feelings, I understand that there's been various complaints written into the council around this whole process. How this magical figure of £2 million came about. That, and I do appreciate. I do appreciate. I won't mention that again.
Order. I think Councillor Fry's got the message.
Well, can you take control? You allow him to mention a figure again, which is a false figure. It doesn't take into account £1 million what Foxhall all spent on the Section 106 agreement. It's a completely false figure.
Thank you,
Can you
Councillor.
either get control
Thank you,
of the
Councillor
meeting or we
Shaw.
all do what we want?
Thank you. Councillor Fry, can you stick to the contents of the
Yes, Chair. My apologies. My apologies to members. As I said, the main focus or the main catalyst for this this motion was the perceived lack of transparency that has affected disaffected the confidence in the council by members of my ward. That, as you know, there has been strong opposition to Wandham Park sale. On a number of occasions, the residents have asked for clarity around the sale on a number of occasions. So, for example, the start of the building, there was no notification. They came on site. Again, they weren't notified, and there were a number of issues around that, and the starting of the building has been delayed and delayed and delayed. So again, that communication with the residents, between the residents and the council, has not been in place and not been consistent, and has eroded the trust that members of my ward and members of the wider ward, wider community in Luton have in the council.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. When answering questions, can you just stick to the contents of the report, because we're losing track of where we are and what exactly the call-in reasons were. I will call you up. I've got a couple of other names. Councillor Taylor.
Chair, it's more of a comment than a question.
Can I give you a chance a bit later once I've asked all the questions?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Babatunde.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions to I think he's the newest member in the chamber, which he has admitted himself tonight that is pretty much new. I just wonder how much training he has had, maybe in the last few weeks, to really know how the complaint process go on and stuff like that. If we all here to come here and start quoting what's on social media, I bet you we won't leave here tonight. And you have to come here. This is a prominent chamber for our town, working for our town. We can't come here to start wasting time on rumors or what's half true. We have to come here with facts and figures. I just want to know how much training he has done on that, and of course, what else does he have rather than rabble-rousing, going around in circles, coming back to saying the same thing over and over again. Because I think there are better things for us to do tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Babatunde, if I can just lightly, I think your question, although may be reasonable, but at this time, to question a member's capability would not be the right question to go at this time. It may be unsafe.
Is he going to answer the questions? And instead of repeating same figures over and over.
That's
which he has
fine.
been corrected,
He's a
not
new member,
facts.
but I think it's unsavory to be asking, to be questioning the capability of another councillor. We are all well aware
It's
of.
not a question of chair. It's not a question of
Councillor
capability. It's a
Babatunde, I
question
am
of-
speaking. I am the chair and I am speaking. I expect you to listen. Can you please
No,
listen
you're
when I'm
questioning
talking?
my own capability of asking a question.
You are talking above me. If you are going to continue doing that, I will ask you to leave the chamber. It's a simple thing. You have had training. You know how to.
Can you say that? Sorry, can you say that again?
Councillor Babatunde, you are speaking. One more time you speak over me, I will ask you to leave the chamber. There are some common courtesies which we extend to all members. You have asked a question which I have very kindly asked you to reconsider because you're asking a question which at the moment is unsavory. Okay, if you have any other question, I'm more than happy for you to continue with that. As far as OSB is concerned, everyone has gone through the usual OSB training that has been offered. Sure you can.
I'm a bit concerned that when I asked advice today about whether to declare an interest or not, because it's about internal council procedures, I didn't need to. But the chair's allowed a lot of stuff outside the report to come into the conversation now about the builders being on site, mentioned by Councillor Fry. Does that advice still stand, or do I need to declare an interest now? I know the chair shouldn't have allowed it, but the fact that it's been allowed has put me in an awkward position, that's all.
No, that's fine.
I'm asking advice of the officers.
I think, Councillor Shaw, that the chair actually brought the discussion back on point.
Yeah.
He couldn't know in advance that those things were going to be introduced. When they were introduced, he put them back on point. So I don't think you are affected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Babatunde, you had a second question.
The question is the reason why this is here right now. Is it for political gains? I think you should answer.
Councillor Fry.
As a representative of my ward, and this affects my ward, and I have had a number of representations from my the people in my ward with concerns about the decisions that have been made. I would repute that it's a political game. You could say anything in this chamber is for political gain, but on this instance, I'm representing the members of my ward and their concerns.
Councillor Bacon.
Okay, just to ask two questions, and they are questions. So on this that you've brought forward, it actually says that the report was first brought, or at some point was brought to OSB in 2023. Have you looked into the papers of who were sitting in that meeting? Because I believe Councillor Franks was also present. So there was an opportunity. This hasn't just come out of nowhere. So the discussion has been going on for a number of years because it dates back to what, 2016, prior to any of us, a lot of us being here. Even the 2023 decision, that was prior to us. So if you're saying that there wasn't an opportunity for members to question it on both sides, I'm not going to be political, on both sides, there was ample opportunity for questions to be asked. So my question is, if you are now unsatisfied, were you unsatisfied with the things that your colleagues would have asked, or are you asking something different today? Secondly, you kind of said that there was brown envelopes, and that's your words, brown envelopes being pushed.
Yeah, that's.
Where is your evidence? And do you have hard evidence to say that brown envelopes are being pushed to either officers or members? Because what you are accusing is really, really serious. And like, you know, everybody knows, if this was taken to court without evidence, it would be thrown out, because what you're doing now is actually causing disrepute to the council.
Councillor Begum, I believe you are quoting what Councillor Fry was quoting from social media, not Councillor Fry's own comments. But I'm quite happy for Councillor Fry to answer your question. He was quoting from social media. Councillor Fry, would you like to respond back to that?
It's exactly that. It's quotes from social media. If you actually listened to what I was said, I said there was no evidence of that situation. There's nothing. There's no one is saying, well, no one has any proof, and it's just from social media, and if it's not if it's not applicable here, then that's the case. I concede that point.
I'm just concerned that if we all act on hearsay
Yeah.
for both parties, whatever it is, cross-party, it's concerning. I think we need to, and this is a generalized comment, we need to work together to actually get the facts rather than go on hearsay.
Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Mr. Chair, Councillor Fry, I'm not quite sure what the motion actually calls for. I'm not clear on that. So what is it exactly that your motion is calling for? Because I'm not clear on that. I think it's just really not, yeah, it's not well understood from my capabilities anyway. So could you just clarify what it is exactly that you want to achieve today by calling this in? Thank you.
I am calling to help to restore the council's reputation for openness and honesty by seeking a further report covering the additional valuation received and explaining any reduction on the sale price.
Councillor Fry, just stick to the points, please. Can I actually have a copy of that written? Have you got more copies, or is that the only? You got another one? Have you got another copy? Okay. All right. Okay. Right. Okay. Overview and Scrutiny Board 17th of November 2025 called in executive decision. That the executive be advised that members of Overview and Scrutiny Board acknowledge that the 3rd of November decision has already been implemented, are concerned that criticism of Luton Borough Council on various social media channels has significantly increased in both frequency and seriousness of the allegations being made, including claims of corruption, brown envelopes, etc., all without any evidence being offered. OSB members request that executive move to help restore the council's reputation for openness and honesty by seeking a further report covering the additional valuations received and explaining any reductions in the sale price achieved. So this is what I believe Councillor Fry and Councillor Franks have put forward as a reason to calling this in and requesting further clarifications going on from OSB now.
Point of order, Chair, point of order. I personally don't think we should move any further with this because the statement you've just read out is giving grounds, using social media as grounds for this agenda item. Do not find that acceptable, because if social media is saying the council officers are aardvarks, are we going to be sitting discussing that they're aardvarks? We're not. That's preposterous. We are wasting council time, and you're bringing something to this meeting based on social media. And Councillor Fry has admitted that he cannot guarantee that the members of this social media group, whose views he says he's representing, do whether or not they live in the borough.
Councillor Hanif, can we just run through all the questions and then we will come back to...
No, could you please take up...
No, but there is a process to run here. Let the process run and then we'll deal with it at the end. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair, for clarifying that, and also Councillor Fry. So a follow-up question to that is, where exactly would you like this report, a second report, to come to? And what exactly have you found? Can you evidence what you found in the new valuations? And where you were able to gain that evidence? That's also, I mean, yeah, that's my question, is where exactly you want this second report to go to and what the evidence for the second valuation is.
We'd like, well, the report itself, we'd like to come back to either OSB or to full council. With regard to the valuations, sorry, I'm just trying to find in the September full council, Councillor Roach admitted that there were more than one valuation given to the council. In the I'll find Appendix A. In Appendix A, If on the implications, the valuation of the transfer was based on a report by an independent external surveyor and subsequently adapted as appropriate by the council's own qualified surveyor at a value of £2 million. I don't understand what that adaptation would be if you've got an independent surveyor providing. But that's, I'm only saying that because obviously you raised the valuation point, so otherwise I wouldn't have mentioned the.
Another follow-up question. Thank you. So you're basing this second valuation report, but I believe that's already been clarified within the public domain and it's been agreed that it was a legal purchase. So I'm not clear on why you seek that when that's already been clarified within a press release that was already sort of gone out. So why exactly do you want to call this back in? I think I'm still not clear on that because that's already been cleared up, and the reputational question that you bring in, how do you think that the work that we've already done by bringing a further report in, how is that going to rectify? I believe the exec has already rectified the issue.
I don't believe that the exec has. I think that the exec have rectified the process, but they haven't rectified how that valuation came, or clarified how that valuation came to as part of that process.
But I do believe that we have to be very, very clear in this committee that actually those valuations are quite misleading, the ones that you're talking about. So again, still not clear when that's already been rectified. I think, just to be very, very clear to all of the members of public, it is a misleading valuation report that you're basing this on.
But that's the whole point, that it's not clear.
I believe it's been rectified.
Councillor Fry, before I move on to any other questions, I believe Councillor Taylor had a comment. And in fact, I'll take the comment first and then I'll progress on to what I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's mainly a comment of I've read through the report and I'm still trying to work out why it's here in the first place. When you're trying to load it up with social media, honesty and integrity, I'm dumbfounded. I mean, I've looked on social media. If you're on planning committee, you're chair of planning committee, then you really get abused. I mean, for the number of brown envelopes I'm supposed to have taken, I should be a millionaire by now, but I just ignore it all. And I think it's really ungenerous of Councillor Franks to leave you here tonight to take up the flak, and I would have a word with him. But the honesty, and it was an honest mistake, which was rectified and accepted by the executive. End of. I know the opposition to Wandon Park. I was part of the process, but what's done is done, and that's the end of it. So I'm just flummoxed of what the whole thing is about. Well, we've been talking for about half an hour. I don't understand.
Right. Before I move on to this, I'm going to allow very quick comments, no long essays, just very quick comments. Councillor Ali had a chance. I will come back to you. Question or comment? Fairly quickly, please. We do need to move on.
Can I ask, obviously this report was presented to the council, okay, but it says here that it was an oversight and the report was sent to the executive on the 3rd of November to correct. So was this not taken into account before this motion was taken, before you brought this motion to the council?
Can you clarify what the oversight was?
The oversight, well, we've been discussing it all evening, haven't we? We know what it is.
The oversight of this.
I'm not going to go through that again.
This was a procedural oversight where the executives, I believe, sorry, the officers sold the land prior to getting authorization from the exec, is my understanding of the situation. If that's not the case, then please.
I don't know if it was the case or not, but can I just make my comment?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's gone through the system and they've said it's been rectified. And also, this has got a lot of social media points being put in it. And, you know, when you put these social media points in, you have to be able to evidence it. So what outcome were you trying to find? What outcome do you want from this evening? Because it's not clear, sorry. Well, I don't understand anyway, so.
The outcome is obviously it's outlined in the statement that was read by the chair, but we would request an additional report outlining the valuation and the making complete clarification of how that magical number of £2 million came. Sorry, my apologies. I please, yeah, please strive. Give me. Yeah, I understand.
Order.
I understand that, but it is a very significant figure.
Can I just say something?
And
Okay.
Councillor, you've had your chance to speak. Can you allow Councillor Fry to finish?
I
please?
do.
I did allow him to speak.
Sorry, I do apologise to the chamber. It is my, and I am very naive in this situation, and I do, being my first in time in this situation, and it is a very long, steep learning curve, and I do apologise.
Thank you. Fairly quickly, we've got 3 comments. Councillor Bridgen, 4 comments.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So, yeah, I can understand the reasoning behind calling this in. It's you know, I've seen some of the comments on social media that you're referring to, and also speaking to people familiar, you know, who are disappointed with what's going on at Wandon Park, who think it's a whitewash, a hatchet job by the executive. Oh, no, it's only you're obviously quoting, but I think that, you know, even although this has been kind of downplayed that there's no material risks, there has been a governance failure. Let me have a look. So the land was transferred on the 31st of July 25 without the further report to the executive as explicitly required on the 9th of Jan 2023 executive decision. The paragraphs 4 and 6 on page 1, the officer report characterises this as not a matter of illegality, but a procedural oversight, and says that there's no material risk associated with the ratification. But that framing does kind of underplay the governance risk, and it ignores the clear executive conditions for disposal, which, again, based on what we've seen on social media, what I've heard, you know, it does erode trust in the delegated authority and weakens member control over the strategic land. There's also a matter of conflicting executive decisions and retrospective legal justification. So there's a 2016 executive decision which gave broad delegated authority to dispose of Wandon Park, and then a further executive decision which imposed conditions, and then there's an executive report which conflicted with this. And then I think, sorry, I'm trying to cut it down. There's also misleading correspondence with residents mentioning one valuation, and then there'd be a subsequent valuation which didn't happen. And again, all these things erode trust. And so, again, I can understand the reasoning behind wanting to bring this forward, you know, a real clarifying report in the public domain that can hopefully restore a degree of public trust in this process. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. One of the first things, I only really got 2 main points to raise. Firstly, coming back to the matter of procedural oversight, I'm not quite sure how a value, this kind of sums that we were talking about for the land in question, how that could be a procedural oversight, but if not pure incompetence by those that are involved. And it's not just residents in Wigmore and the Stopsley area that use the park that are raising questions. People in my ward are also starting to make questions about competence. And if that kind of sum of money is considered to be a procedural oversight, you can understand why residents are really quite concerned about the decisions, the financial decisions that we are making in this council. The second thing is, on whose grounds do we say that whoever it was, the officers were professionally qualified? That is a statement. That is a pure statement. We have no recognition in the council as to whether those were able to make the decisions or whether it should have been done by an outside office. And finally, when we talk about openness and we talk about scrutiny and we're talking about letting the residents of our town know what's going on, how could we have justified at the last executive, which I attended on behalf of yourself, Chair, how could we accept a decision that it would only be as a matter of process that it would go straight through without allowing any questions to be raised? Because as far as I'm concerned, and if you look it up in the dictionary, a ratification of something that's taken place is also a decision. So we should have had an opportunity to ask questions about the decision at that time, because it would actually meant that quite a lot of what's happening this evening will have been answered at that time. And now we're having to go through this procedure again. And I think that all of this, if I can just wrap up, all of this actually is a stain on us as a council and our integrity.
Councillor Hanif.
Yeah, I wish Councillor Bridget made the representation, because he has made a lot more sense than Councillor Fry. I'm sorry, it's very disappointing that social media comments have been brought as a grounds for complaint, whereas Councillor Bridget makes technical points, Councillor Fry doesn't. We've just wasted 43 minutes and counting of this council's time talking about what social media is saying. I'm sorry, that does not represent the residents. It's a well-established fact that social media, somebody can sign up pretending to live wherever, and you've conceded that, but you carry on mentioning that, okay? And it's a shame that this committee's time has been wasted, where something has been brought forward on the basis of social media. And if this is allowed to continue, Chair, then we're sending a very disturbing precedent where we're running scared of libelous and malicious comments on social media as a ground for residents' concerns.
Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. I think we all accept that the procedural process was flawed, and I think the exec also accepted that. But again, since then, all opinions that we've received, it's the decision remains that, you know, it was a lawful fail and it's been ratified by the executive. I can't stress that enough. And I think we're also forgetting that we are, you know, as, you know, a council, especially as a Labour administration, the scheme, I think, you know, we shouldn't be overlooking the fact that this is going to be delivering really vital number of homes, 60 number of homes, 28% of them are going to be affordable for people like myself, young people like myself, who will be on the housing ladder because of schemes like this. Yes, there was a mistake made, but that's been ratified, and that's legally, it's been accepted as being ratified, and it's been accepted as a lawful sale. And, you know, I can, you know, and that's been accepted. We've been open and honest about the fact that a procedural mistake was made, but we've moved past that and said, we've corrected that. The valuations, I still don't understand where those have come from. And, you know, to talk of an average land value, which within this context is misleading, because, you know, you can't really say that the land value of like Mayfair would cost the same as somewhere in Blackburn. So I really don't I still think that's kind of baseless, because the valuations have since been verified multiple times. And and calls for further valuations and a second report to call that in is nothing but delaying the delivery of these really important homes for young people. And, you know, from members across the chambers, I think attempts to insinuate any kind of underhanded dealings are unacceptable. I don't think it's a stain to our integrity when we have openly accepted that a mistake was made and we have ratified it. I don't think it's fair to say that it's a stain on our integrity. I think that's very big words to use for something that was an honest mistake. And also, directors of Foxhole Homes receive remuneration for their roles, and their only desire is to deliver homes for people that need it. And I have to remind you that your deputy leader of the opposition also was a director until recently, exiting that position. So it's clear that you know, this is just a way of delaying a much needed delivery of houses that we need. So to
thank
oppose
you,
the
Councillor
development,
Khan. Can I
economic growth.
Move over to the next person, please? We have
Sorry.
spent
thank
quite a
you.
long time on this.
No, I
There is
appreciate that. Thank you.
There is a process to follow. I have given everyone a chance. Hazel, you're up next. Let me just get Councillor Shaw in, and then it's your turn. Councillor Shaw.
I realise I don't normally speak at OSB, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, Chair, to put the position of the executive, because it's been referred to quite a lot by you all this evening. So I think it is only fair that I explain to you the thinking on the night. As has already been outlined by my colleague, this is a very important housing scheme for the town, and 28% affordable housing will be put on this housing scheme, very needed for our town. You all know the homeless crisis we have in Luton. Consequently, when we found out, and you all found out, that a mistake had been made by our officers, which they openly accepted. It was transparent. It was clearly told to all three leaders and explained openly in the paper that went to the executive that night. A mistake had been made, and this procedural report that has been called in tonight, it is only a procedural report putting right the fact that the second part of the motion that was carried by the executive previously was not carried out correctly. So the November the 3rd report sought to correct that procedural oversight by officers. That was the only decision for the executive that evening. There was no need to question it. Everybody knew it was a procedural report putting it right. I collected with the monitoring officer that it was a procedural report and did not need debate. That was agreed. I therefore said to the executive, we're not having any debate on this, and we didn't have any questions or comments. As you well know, the opposition come along to the executive, but they only come along on the behest of us. They do not have rights at the executive unless we allow it. And that evening, I said, no, we're not having any questions from the executive. And I stand by that decision because I thought it was the right decision on a procedural motion that was going to the executive that evening. So I think it was very fair for me to explain the thinking behind the actions taken by the executive that night.
Thank you, Hazel. We have jumped one process forward. Councillor Shaw, is there anything you want to add on to?
I'm going to be very careful, only talk about the council, not talk about Foxhole Homes at all.
Okay, be quick, please, because I've got a page full of process.
I've got, and at the end of it, I'll move an amendment as well to what you've got in front of you. The council did more consultation over this scheme than they did over any other scheme in Luton at all. At least 2 public consultation meetings. Where I've got to give the Liberal, it's not often I'll pay credit to the opposition, but they were against it from day one. The first consultation exercise, there's the 3 Liberal councillors sat in St Thomas's Church collecting petitions for people as he came in against the scheme. They've done well. They've managed to keep the opposition going a long way. But the bills are on site now. It's finished. What we need to do is recognise the valuation was a good valuation, yeah. When you put the section 106 agreement on top, it's a brilliant valuation. So what I'll move that no further discussion takes place apart from the amendment to what you've got in front of you, and that I indicate that no objection to the Colding decision being implemented, in which case it may be implemented immediately. What it says in the report, number one. So we can get on with it and do it. And notice what I said. I moved as standing orders, no further discussion on this matter. You move to a vote, Chair.
All right, let me just clarify. Councillor Shaw is moving a recommendation that this discussion here ceases and does not continue. Mark, can I get your opinion on this, please?
Yes, Chair. So Councillor Shaw has moved a closure motion that the question be now put. So the procedure for the committee is first of all to vote on that closure motion, whether they accept it. If they do accept it, then to move to the vote on the substantive item. If the closure motion is defeated, then the debate may continue.
Councillor Shaw, before you go on to that, I was holding on to something here which I think needs to be addressed beforehand, before we go on to yours. I have allowed everyone equal time to actually make the questions or comments. I think there were some disgruntlement on my right-hand side. I haven't prioritized any one of the members. Everyone's had equal say. So therefore, moving on to this, Councillor Fry, the two pieces of paper I have in front of me are the call-in form that was filled out by Councillor Franks, which read that the reasons for the calling in, there has been a significant increase in social media posts on various sites claiming, amongst other things, corruption, brown envelopes, crookedness on this issue involving the council. This decision does nothing to repair or restore the reputation of the council, its officers and members, and is a missed opportunity to do so. However, the piece of paper that you have brought on board goes a bit further than that and starts discussing the valuation of the land, etc. Now, whilst Councillor Shaw has moved this to a closure, which we will come on to in a minute, even if I do go ahead, because of the two differences, I mean, it's going to be tricky trying to move this forward because even the two pieces of information we have don't really add up in terms of what we are discussing here. So is there anything that you want to comment on, or is there anything that you wish to change here? Hang on, give me 1 minute, give me 1 minute, give me 1 minute, please. I am the chair, I will present the motion. I will present that motion. You need to give me a chance to finish. You need to give me a chance to finish. That's fine. You need to give me a chance to finish. Okay. I need to make sure that Councillor Fry is content with what we are about to do and understands what we are about to do. As you have all witnessed here, Councillor Fry is new and does need clarification. Does need clarification. I'm sorry, I'm the chair, so prerogative is mine. Councillor Shaw, end off. I am bringing this to a closure. You need to allow me to bring it to a closure in the manner that I see fit. Do not speak in front of me, please. Councillor Shaw, you will be asked to leave the chamber. I am following the standard processes. Councillor Fry, do you understand exactly what's been said here?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Now, we move over to the closure motion, which Councillor Shaw has presented. Is there anyone that's going to second it? Sorry? Well, if you're all going to start talking at me, I'm not going to understand anything. Right, can we get on with it now, please? Councillor Shaw, there's a process, there's a way to move things. If you're going to talk over me, then there is nothing that's going to happen.
All right, then, Chair, can we follow the standing orders? What's being moved is a closure motion without any further discussion. If you read the standing orders, should move straight to a vote.
Right, Mark, do we need a second or is it straight to a vote?
Chair, my understanding is that you are now moving a vote on whether or not the closure motion should be supported. That is appropriate.
That is correct. Thank you. Right. So show of hand. Councillor Stevens. Councillor Stevens, would you like to take your seat, please? Right, okay. Show of hands, everyone in favor of Councillor Shaw's move to close this discussion? Okay, anyone against? That's fine. We will now close this discussion off. That's fine. So Councillor Shaw is now moving the decision to indicate that they have the OSP has no objection to the call-in decision being implemented and can be implemented immediately. Everyone in favor? Anyone against that decision? Okay, thank you. That's been carried. So the decision is to have no objection to the call-in decision being implemented and can be implemented immediately. That brings this discussion to a close, and we move over to agenda item 7, Luton Adult Learning Self-Assessment Report. No worries, Hazel, thank you.
Good evening, councillors. I'm Mary James and I'm the Adult Skills Delivery Manager for Luton Borough Council. And I'm here tonight to ask for your permission to submit the Adult Learning Self-Assessment Report to Ofsted on the 31st of January. The self-assessment report is an Ofsted requirement and it's part of the mandatory Department for Education funding rules. So we have to submit the report. The report itself is for the last academic year. So it's for 2024 to 2025. So it's for the academic year that finished on the 31st of July, 2025. So it's a retrospective report in regards to how well we think we did that year and what our areas for development are. So I'll hand over to councillors to see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands of anyone who wishes to ask a question?
It's not a question related to the report. In fact, I'm going to turn my mic off.
Anyone that's got a question? Question? Comment? Any questions? No? Does everyone want to come for break? Okay, 5 minutes come for break. Sorry about this.
Councillor Taylor and they might have gone drag.
Okay, we will reconvene the meeting. I believe most of the members are here. We were at comments because no one had a question. Oh, you've got a question? That comfort break has
Thank you.
refreshed minds.
On page 8, where you've got your figures in terms of learner demographics, I was just wanting to know, it would be nice, I mean, I can see the figures here. I mean, you've got some really good figures in terms of engagement, in terms of the breakdown, ethnic background of your learners. What would have been interesting for me, and this is me personally, is that if you kind of had numbers of out of how many within that demographic are accessing these services, so that we can identify where we perhaps need to do some work. I mean, this is great. It's clear you've done a lot of work, and I'm really pleased to see that some of these figures are really looking healthy. It's just to help us identify, are we perhaps missing something when it comes to sort of like the Gypsy Irish Travellers, for example, because there's only 3 people that have enrolled. So just to identify areas where we could perhaps get more people enrolling, it would be good to see how many of that ethnic group we have within Luton and how many of them are accessing the services, so that we've got a better understanding. But that was the only comment I had for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We can get that data.
On the back of this question, it'd also be quite good to see a male-female mix. Just see which within the demographics and seeing which areas we're lacking to target if there is a specific area within those demographics.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fry. We can get that data as well.
Sorry, just for my clarification, the question plus the add-on question, you're going to provide a written response back?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, we move over to comments. Councillor Stevens.
A very good report, but I do have a few questions, clarification, if I could, please.
Councillor Stevens, questions or
Oh,
comments?
sorry, a few comments. But some of them might be like a comment which has a question attached to it, I suppose. Firstly, I would like to have seen more clarification about access into higher education. What we're going to do to encourage the communities that we're engaging with, and more work together with the university to try to bring forward that. It's not really mentioned in there. There's no mention of access into higher education, and it's something I think it's quite important that should. With my 27 years at the university, having taught on access courses as well, it's something that's important. And if we're going to encourage people to get higher paid jobs as well as getting them into jobs, I think that's one significant thing that perhaps should be added. The other, I quite rightly picked up the point which was in page 18 about apprenticeship standards and do they align with the strategic aims? Well, the aims must be, it doesn't just stop as an apprentice, at an apprenticeship. The apprenticeship is one part of it. What are the numbers that actually get into fulfilling jobs at the end of it? There should be some recognition in there, and there should be something that's in the report to show that we are succeeding along those particular lines. That was another point I picked up. Specifically to my ward, about South Ward, I'm not quite sure that just having a fair in Moreton House, which isn't particularly easily accessible for many of the residents in my ward, was enough to actually involve the community as well as we could have done. So I think going forward, I would like to see that we make some access available within the ward itself, so that we're getting hold of a lot of those people that are not in privileged positions and who would desperately need help to better qualify themselves to get into reasonable jobs. On another area, I think it's there are huge numbers there that not in paid work and not looking for work. It would be nice to know what is the background to that part because it's a large number of people. I know slightly there's a bigger number of people, those who are not in paid work but are looking for work. And again, is there anything that we are doing beyond putting down the statistics to see what efforts are being made to engage with them to be able to find jobs, you know, to get them into work? I think that was another point that I picked up. And the last thing, I suppose, it's about the underrepresentation of the 16 to 24-year-old group. Now, we know that large numbers of our young people are not in work, find it difficult to get work. So I wonder what we're doing really to go out and engage more with that group. The biggest group is in the 25 to 55 group, quite understandably, but underrepresentation purely in the 16 to 24 group. My very last point, sorry, Chair, my very last point, but it's an important point. It's about the volunteers. What are we doing to train the volunteers and perhaps put them through a scheme where they get some certification out of it to add to their CV? They're an important group. Are we doing enough for them to help them build up their CV and perhaps to become paid members, not just volunteers in the future? So those are my key points. Other than that, very good report. So.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. But those things, some of them we will have to add to our destinations project for next year, because it's already been done for the previous academic year. But there's some really, really good suggestions there for data that we can get going forward. So thank you for that.
Councillor Shaw.
I've turned it on. Stop picking on me, you lot. Stop trying to bully me. We're going to start Silver Surfers courses. A lot of it will have language difficulties because our target audience, what we're looking at. So you're saying through this report, reading through that we may be able to get some help to pay for that tutor, because it'd have to be someone who can speak Urdu and English. So you think you'd be able to get some help to pay for the tutor?
We might be able to help.
We'll pay for the room, we'll pay for everything.
We might be able to actually help by providing an English for speakers of other languages tutor to come along and co-teach.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for attending.
Any other comments? No, thank you. I believe the recommendation is to endorse the Adult Learning Services Annual Self-Assessment Report and instruct officers to submit the report to Ofsted. Are we all happy with the recommendation? Thank you. That's all approved. Thank you very much, and apologies on the long delay that you've had to wait. Thank you. We now move over to agenda item 8, which is the Bedfordshire Local Nature Recovery Strategy, delivered by Sunny.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take up too much time presenting the item. I think everyone knows me. I'm Sunny Sahadban, Head of Planning. I've got Siobhan Vincent. She works for CBC, our neighbours who are in partnership with us. She's here to deputise for Richard James, who's a shared resource for the 3 boroughs that are preparing this LNRS. We're happy to assist members tonight with any questions or comments that you might have in terms of the agenda item.
Thank you, Sunny. Can I have hands for questions first, please? Anybody else? I have Councillor Marshall, Fry, Councillor Shaw. Anybody else? No? Yes, sir? Comment, okay. Are you sure it's a comment? 100% sure. Okay. Councillor Marshall.
Am I asking a question or am I commenting? Because I'm now really confused.
Questions.
Thank you, Chair.
Questions first.
Thank you, Steve. thank you for the report. It's extremely detailed and as a great of interest to me as I get involved in lots of things in relation to wildlife and biodiversity in and around the town. Really keen to understand what is happening to support our very valuable chalk stream in Luton, the River Lee, because this summer, through nobody's direct fault in this chamber, just due to climate change, it almost ran dry when it was running through Limbury. Now, I'm not going to start talking about social media because I know some people get upset about it, but there are lots of questions and comments from people who are interested in what's happening. Are there any specific plans to support the River Lee in its journey through our town? Thank you.
Yes, I'm pleased that yes, there are. So that's been specifically identified as a priority for Bedfordshire, the chalklands, the chalk streams. And there was a specific piece of work done, which we called the Blue Lens, which was actually looking not just from an LNRS point of view, but taking it to that next level with anything to do with the water environment. And so there's been a specific extra project which has only been carried out in Bedfordshire and has its own list of priorities and actions that are, and part of that is specifically to the chalklands and the chalk streams.
Can I ask what's been done specifically though for that stretch of the River Lee when it runs through Luton, through the Limbury area and down into town? Is there anything which is happening at this moment in time or planned to happen?
So at the moment, we're not specifically delivering any actions at the moment. The stream, the strategy sets out and agrees that this is a priority for Bedfordshire. And then in order to deliver projects, the deliveries through things like the biodiversity net gain requirements and further afield, the environmental land management schemes run by DEFRA, they'll provide funding that they get an uplift if they're delivering priorities that are identified in the LNRS. So moving forward, we're working very closely with all our partners, including the National Landscape people who are, they're also very interested obviously in the chalk streams, to come together with projects, opportunities for funding, to then, because the opportunities that the LNRS gives is to open up more funding because they're seen as strategic projects that have been given that higher level of priority. And therefore it would really support us to deliver those projects. So although there's nothing specific within the document itself, what it does identify is that that is a priority and that there are a list of measures that ideally should be delivered to support the chalk streams. And that's what the next stage will be, is for us to see how we can deliver on those priorities.
Councillor Fry.
Just want a point of clarification and then I'll ask my question if you don't mind. Point 11 in the front on page 22 of our documents. Should that be green spaces or species?
It's green spaces.
All right, okay.
Yes.
Just moving on to the appendix 4.3.2 regulating. What's the enforcement for the regulations that you're planning to put in?
With regards to the LNRS
Yep.
enforcement, there is no enforcement. The LNRS is a strategy to identify opportunities.
Right.
The only opportunity we have for enforcement currently is through biodiversity net gain, where any of the options and any of the actions are delivered through a planning section 106.
Okay.
Or through a habitat bank where we have conservation covenants.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Shaw.
Chair. The first one I think has affected all the councils. It's one of the biggest shames there is. When we had the massive tree planting project about 3-4 years ago, we had all the volunteers going around planting the trees. That they planted some in Parkland, what was totally unsuitable because it was chalk 18 inches under the ground, and they planted a load of beech trees, but just most of them have died now, I think. But the apple trees, the apple orchards they planted in places, or fruit orchards, survived. So could there be a lot more liaison when next time we're doing a large tree planting project between yourselves and the people doing it to make sure we're planting the right trees in the right places? It's lovely for a brilliant idea to go and plant 50 beech trees on Lucy Park. I think there's 2 of them that survived because of the makeup of the ground on the Lucy Park. But the apple trees are planted at the top of Ravens Hill. They're lovely. They're all growing, everything else. So it's a bit more liaison between major projects like that and yourselves. The second one is we talk about the chalk streams. Central beds has created a large problem for Lucy. Because when Alton Brook is, which feeds into the River Lee at behind Marsh House, when Alton Brook is going full blast because of all the developments over at Oughton, you know, the big warehouse development, the balancing ponds you've got behind Kestrel Way, Lucy Brook floods because the water in the Lucy Brook chalk stream can't get out of the park because Oughton is running full blast and there's nowhere for it to go. This weekend again, the park flooded for about 50 metres around the bridge in the middle of the park. Is there any way we can look at further enhancements? I know it's not in Luton now, and Brook is out meeting central beds, that we can make it so either balancing ponds don't release the water as quick, so they don't go into out and Brook as quick, so the water what's on Lucy Park, they can flow away. But what happens now, every time you have heavy rain, you get a flood on the park. It soon disappears because it's chalk and say 18 inches under the ground. But the river on the park becomes the dike on the park becomes very full very quickly because nothing can get away further down the stream. So there's a way we can look jointly through this to see if either by a slow release from your aquifers, slow release from your continuation tanks or whatever, so the Brook, Lucy Brook can get away. That's my question.
And thank you. It's a good question. So firstly, through the LNRS, the opportunities that identifies are for natural flood defence opportunities. So you create a natural. So that's one thing that the LNRS can do. But what we already do as an authority and with Luton's, we work as a wider catchment area. So there is already a catchment group that includes officers and other partners from both the Luton area and Central Beds, where we look to see as a whole what the issues are, because absolutely that border is somewhat irrelevant from the water's point of view. So we do already work across borders on a catchment level approach.
Right, like when they built the Amazon warehouse over in Dunstable, the overflow from that warehouse discharges into Lucy Brook by coming under everything. And then there was a massive argument when Pastures Way flooded. Who was responsible for cleaning out the gully gates? Was it Thames Water? Was it Central Beds Council? Because all the water was coming from Central Beds? Or was it Luton Council? While all that argument was going on, Pastures Way was flooding. So I'm glad that there's a body working together, but if you can put that on the agenda, it's a bit of a shame that the council can go and cut all Lucy Park and then it not being able to be used for a couple of weeks because it's like a mud bath because of all the water what's coming from outside our town into that brook. That's all I'm asking.
I'll be very happy to take that forward to the catchment meetings.
Councillor Steve?
Yes, thank you. Actually, I realised a couple of the comments we're going to say were actually questions, so I'm getting confused my questions and comments today. I have a couple of recommendations to make as well, small recommendations if I might going forward. I just want to start before my questions to saying I agree with some of the comments it's made, that it's a very well written and very well organised piece of work. That's the first thing I wanted to say. But going on beyond that, is there any way going forward that we could have a smaller, concise piece of work that can go out to the lay person, the lay people? Because this is fine for me because I have a deep interest in the area. But I think that judging by the number of comments, it could have been further. And a piece of work that could have gone into schools, gone into the university. This is far too big for most people to manage. So that would be a recommendation of mine if we were going to go further with it, to take it out into the community to get further comments, and especially amongst the young people, because we need their views. It's their future as much as anything else. That was one of my recommendations. The second recommendation is I do pick up the point that Councillor Fry has made, that there's no legal binding about this, but, and this is the big but, will there be any further iteration of the strategy, or perhaps amendments once we know the full impact of the planning and infrastructure bill when it comes into statute? Because that is where some of the legal parts will have an effect on what's going forward. I'm personally hoping, like many people, that some of the amendments that are coming through the House of Lords will end up in the bill, which will give greater protection. I wouldn't want to see what is likely to come forward on some of the small developments, which is going to be that it'll be offset by tree planting. Although tree planting is important, it's not the way forward necessarily. It's the protection of the fauna and the flora, which we are in danger of losing. And if I could just drift it into a comment, Chair, I know I'm taking advantage. But in a Luton context, I'd like to know what kind of promotion was made, because it's not broken down into the figures. The figures weren't very high. There were in-person events that took place. They didn't take place in Luton, as far as I know, amongst friends of mine in environmental organisations. So I'm not quite sure because we've seen a version of this earlier in the year at OSB. So I don't know where it's gone and how much interaction has taken place. So that is a question. And finally, can I move on to a recommendation, a small recommendation? Or in a minute, coming back to that.
We're going to come to recommendations later. Just finish off your question stroke comment.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll come back on comments now. I'll finish. Those are my questions. Sorry.
That's fine, thank you. I'd say with regards to the different versions, to making this more accessible to the many different people that we hope will use the document, that is the next stage of the process that we're just mapping out now. We've identified that there are a number of different groups of people that need to have a more focused version of, well, what does this mean for me type documents. And we've got those being landowners, farmers, developers, households, etc. I don't think we've got young persons on the list, so I shall add that one to them. And we're hoping to provide a suite of documents so that somebody can look at it and say, okay, I don't need to read this massive, great big LNRS. As I say, what does it mean for me? So that's the next stage of work that we'll be doing. With regards to reviewing the document, the original legislation says that the review will take place within 3 to 10 years. At the moment, the government's given, I say government, DEFRA are giving us the impression that they're expecting it to be carried out every 3 years, but we're still waiting for that to be confirmed. However, in the meantime, what is very clear is we do have to continue to monitor what is actually being done on sites. What are we seeing? What's the results of an LNRS, which needs to be above and beyond what we were doing anyway. And therefore we can see the difference that the LNRS has made and where the review needs to take place and where it needs to focus on. So that's set in the legislation. We have made a decision as a LNRS board that we will continue to monitor and update mapping as we go through, so that we're constantly having a live record. Because unfortunately, one of the downsides of the LNRS is you cannot change the maps once they've been published. So then it's very difficult to show people what a difference it is making. But we've made a decision as a board that we will continue that piece of work. I think there was a last thing. Yes, yeah. And the other thing, whereabouts did we do the consultation? How did we engage with people, certainly within this area? I'm afraid I haven't got the list of all the sites, but we certainly did carry out some light consultations within, I feel like it was the library and some other areas in Stockgrove. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yes, definitely at Houghton Hall as well,
I
yeah.
think there was a day spent in the Hat Gardens and Stockwood Park as well.
Microphone, Councillor Steve.
Okay, my question wasn't answered.
Apologise, I just can't hear you, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I was asking about the any possible iteration of the strategy or amendments once we know the full impact of
Yeah.
once it come into law, once it's in a statute, we will see what it's going to affect, and it will affect the LNRS.
Yes, sorry. So that's part of the review of the LNRS process. So I believe that's because we're subject to DEFRA as to what we can and can't do, because this is part of the Environment Act 2021. So we can't make any changes to the mapping or the document once it's been agreed until we are told when we can review the document. As I say, at the moment it appeared that we're hearing rumours that it'll be every 3 years we're supposed to review the document. However, the legislation does allow for up to 10 years. But as I say, it is for DEFRA to let us know when we have to do that review.
Councillor Bridgen.
Thanks, Chair. So, I mean, my question is in relation to biodiversity net gain. How will the LNRS be used alongside mandatory BNG rules to steer where off-site units and nature-based solutions are delivered, so that they support Luton's 2040 climate and wellbeing goals, rather than being sort of ticking a national box as such?
Yes, so the LNRS works in line with the biodiversity net gain requirements, in that if somebody who's delivering biodiversity net gain are delivering opportunities that are mapped within the LNRS. And to be clear, with the LNRS, we were guided to map around 30% of the area as a whole. Where there is that habitat in the right place, there is an uplift to the biodiversity gain numbers. So there's an uplift up to 15%. So instead of, in effect, whoever's providing that habitat in that place, they're getting more bang for their bucks, because they're delivering the priority habitat in a priority place. So instead of that biodiversity net gain unit being the equivalent to 1 unit, it's equivalent to 1.15 units. So therefore, they're using smaller amounts of land to create more units, whether that's through income by selling the units or for offsetting what they're doing on site. So that's how the two things work together. And with the biodiversity net gain hierarchy, you should always be showing how you're going to, ideally, you should start with looking to see what you can deliver on site, then within the local LPA area, to then you have to create more units the further you go away. So if I needed to create 1 unit on site, I just need to create, to get the 10% uplift, 1.1. If I'm providing a habitat that is within the LNRS, I need to provide 0.85 because it's got more value. If I'm going outside of my red line boundary, I've got to create 1.15. As I go further away until you get to your central government units, credits, they're 2 units for each, 2 credits for each one. So it's a bit complicated, but there is a hierarchy that all developers, agents should be going through, because the further away their units are from their actual development, the more expensive they are.
Just follow up, I mean, in terms of the expense, I mean, is this something that developers can get out of or avoid with their kind of viability assessments and the like, or is it totally?
No, because it's legislation. It's from the Environment Act 2021. So it is a legislative requirement that doesn't allow any flexibility, apart from, as all legislative, with the small bits of flexibility. But no, it is a mandatory requirement.
Any other questions or comments? You've had your turn. Give me 1 second. So I've got a question in terms of the late Trevor Tween. He was doing some really good work. What provisions are in place to actually carry on some of the things that he was doing?
Thank you. Luckily, the central government recognises the value of the LNRS, and we have received further funding for an officer's time for the next year. It's what they're calling the transition phase. So once we have the final LNRS, it's how do we move towards delivery? So this is why the work we're currently doing is looking at those extra documents that we need to show people how they can deliver the options in the LNRS and how we can work with all our partners and stakeholders to support them in their delivery of this as well.
Okay, thank you. Steve.
Yes, I would like to recommend, if it's possible, on Appendix A, page 24, that we make some reference to Luton's ancient woodlands of Kidney Wood and Birmingham Wood.
Am I right in thinking they're ancient woodlands that are classified, they're designated as ancient woodlands?
As far as I know, they're Birmingham's, yes, both of them are.
Yeah.
Kidney Wood. So I think it'd be only fair to make some reference to them in that section.
So if I can just explain, so the reason why any existing designated site isn't within those because they're not mapped because they're already protected. So we've only mapped outside of those, but they should be within the background mapping, which shows the existing designations, which will include all our SSSIs, county wildlife sites, and ancient woodlands, because they are all protected a priority habitat. It should be there, but I will, however, have a look to make sure that it's in there.
I just thought it would fit into that section because we're talking about the SSSIs on a number of areas, but it didn't seem to include that, and that to me was an important point. I would like to have seen some special mention also in a Luton context of the fauna and flora that are in danger. So, for example, the common spotted orchid and the bee orchid, we were about to lose when the building takes place on Wigmore Valley Park. We're in danger of losing some very significant orchids there. They tried to transpose them to other sites. It's not working. So that's a loss in our biodiversity. We are also in danger of losing last tracts of our heather, our harebells, our common milkwort, our common nest harrow, our betony. And as far as I can see that with regard to the animals, if you like, the fauna, turtle doves are in massive decline, hazel dormice, voles, shrews, these are all in massive decline in Luton. So I'd like to have seen more in there about what we're doing to protect in the Luton environment. And more than anything else, one of our great pollinators is in massive decline, and that is wild bees and bumblebees. And if you look around in your gardens and you try to find the number of bumblebees and wild bees, they're not those that are coming from beehives, they're in massive decline. And that is a serious issue in general in the UK, but obviously specifically in areas like Bedfordshire and in Luton. So I'd like to have seen more specifically mentioned in a Luton context on what we're doing to protect our fauna and flora.
Do you want me to come back on that with you? Yeah, that's right. I was making sure I answered the question. So there are all those species are identified within the LNRS as important species, and we do recognise it. They're not mapped because they are all over Bedfordshire. So all of the requirements. The areas where you may find some particular mapping is where we've got species that need not just a habitat that will support them and lots of others, but where you've got a species that may need a specific thing to be provided, such as the dormice. So it's understanding where those areas are, where we currently have those species and how we can protect and manage them. So there is some mapping, but there's a lot of those species aren't mapped because they're in decline across all of Bedfordshire. So one of the pieces of work we're doing is those what you could call the white areas, the bits that aren't mapped as well as the ones that are mapped, but the ones that aren't mapped, what you can do across the board. So things we're saying about the extra documentation to say, what does this mean for me? One of the key ones for us for that is having householders. What can you do in your back garden to encourage bees? And and not having your lights on at night. So we're still keeping the moths available, etc. So there is, but we can certainly bring that up and make sure it's much more focused for the urban environments and Luton specifically.
Good. I was thinking more also about our school children. And when I'm talking about the Luton context, they're thinking
Steve.
about our school children here.
Steve, can you wrap it up, please?
Sorry?
We need to move on. Can you wrap it up, please?
I'm just picking up why I mentioned that particular species. And I'm picking up the point, and please, but I'm talking about the young people, which I mentioned earlier, they're our future. And so that they can learn more about what we're doing in the Luton context.
That's fine. Just refer the question, but we've already obviously passed questions, comments and everything. So you're going on to, yeah, that's fine. You can finish what you were asking, but just we need to move on from here. That's fine. Thank you. Right. So the recommendation put forward for us is for the overview scrutiny board is recommended to comment and support the recommendations in the executive report attached as Appendix A to this report on the local nature recovery strategy. Is everyone happy with the recommendations?
I mean, the simple reason is that I know the problem got on Lucy Park with the brook filling up because it can't get out. But all that kind of stuff could be taken into account in a Luton report, and we know what we need to do over the next 5 years. I'm not asking for you to go out and do it.
Councillor Shaw, do you want to put this as a recommendation?
That we ask the executive to look in the near future to produce a Luton biodiversity report and the effects on chalk streams. We can't say to, because we won't have the money in to do it now, but we ask them to do it in the near future.
Second that.
Thank you. So
do that, you'll spoil my reputation if you do that.
The added recommendation, as Councillor Shaw put forward and Councillor Steve has seconded, that a Luton specific LNRS report is produced in the near future. Okay, are we all happy with both recommendations? That's fine. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much. That's the end of this agenda item. Thank you, both officers. We now move over to agenda item 9, which is the OSB draft work program. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I thought myself and Councillor Franks, we both picked up the same thing about special education needs school transport, and we're going to get a report back, but I can't see anything on the agenda for it. SEN school transport.
Was that coming to this committee or was that going to FRG?
I don't know, Angela, that's what I'm asking. I'm not sure where it come.
I thought that you raised those questions at FRG and officers were preparing a response back to those questions that you raised at the FRG.
If it comes back there, I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know, I thought this was a sensible place for it, but I'm happy either way.
Yeah, I think I can vaguely remember it was around budget, etc. So that would have fallen under FRG rather than OSB.
Yeah, if it goes to FRG, I'm not bothered.
Okay, because I think we discussed both children's services and FRG, and we went for FRG at the end. Any other questions or comments, Councillor Stevens?
The executive meeting date, 16th of February. We've got service standards for domestic waste and recycling by Sean Askins. Would that include what we had asked for some time back about some further research into underground bin storage and alternative bin storage? In the report, it just says service standards for domestic waste and recycling. I'm wondering if
Steve, 1 second. Members, the Councillor Taylor, the meeting is still ongoing. No, it's still ongoing. We've got another agenda item we're talking about. It's up to you, but can we not interrupt the rest of the meeting, do you think? Councillor Steve.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, could we ensure that it includes what we were promised some time back, which was a full report into underground storage facilities or alternative storage facilities in the town, rather than just the standard bin service that we have? We were promised a report a long time back.
I think the report that went to the last OSB, I think you asked for a report back on underground bins, and I think the officer did agree to bring a report back to a future meeting, but that will be in the new year. I don't know if it's going to encompass that particular report, because that's different to what's going to the executive. I will do.
Okay, any other questions or comments? No, thank you. We're